Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. The Big Ten opener for USC as USC is traveling to Michigan, okay? And you want to talk about how quickly perceptions can change in the world of college, any sport, but we're talking college football, obviously, in this case, right? Talk about how quickly perception can change. Over the summer, I remember we did a segment on early look lines. Michigan was like an 8.5-point home favorite here going into in the middle of summer. Whenever the lines dropped, I think it was early July, we did the segment. Well, it is now late September. USC is now a 5.5-point road favorite. The over-under set at 46.5. Coming into this game, listen, we know what the big story is. Michigan has officially made the quarterback change that I think a lot of fans were hoping for. Alex Orji will be the starting quarterback, obviously replacing Davis Warren. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and maybe Michigan fans will be mad at me. Maybe they'll get in the comment section, whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't think this move was made because, Alex Orji has been blowing up in practice and he has taken this job away from Davis Warren. I think through 3 games, it has become obvious that Davis Warren is very limited in what he can do. By the way, he's a former walk-on. He should be, right? If he was that good, he would have gotten a scholarship right out of high school. But I believe that what happened behind the scenes, and we talked about it in fall camp, that staff was waiting for Alex Orji to take that job. He never did. Davis Warren got the start, but we're 3 games into the season. It is clear that Davis Warren isn't good enough to win you the big games late in the year that matter. You host Oregon in a few weeks. You host USC this week. Of course, Ohio State, all these games later in the year. And so Michigan, to me, made a calculated decision from a few perspectives. One, throw Alex Orji out there. See if he can handle it. If you even watch the Arkansas State game, they played Butch Jones in Arkansas State a few days ago on last Saturday in week 3. You could see Michigan was just putting him out there, hoping that there was a spark. Wasn't really, but whatever. I also wonder if this is a little bit of the Nick Saban from a year ago. Remember when Alabama played USF last year, right after they had lost to Texas? If you remember that game, Alabama loses to Texas, and I'll put the parallel together here in a second. But Alabama loses to Texas. And if you remember, there was talk of Jalen Milroe's not the guy. He's not good enough. He can't get the job done. Blah, 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 blah. And so Nick Saban said, okay, I'm in practice every day. You all think that Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner are better options? Do you remember this? Because Nick Saban threw them out there against South Florida. It became blatantly clear that they could not lead that offense. And so Nick Saban was like, yeah, no, I'm showing you what I see in practice every day. Jalen Milroe's our starter. Now let's figure out a way to get the most out of Jalen Milroe. And I wonder if there is a scenario where Michigan is doing the same. Or saying, you guys want Alex Orji? All right, you're going to see what it's all about. I just don't know that he's good enough. And I'll be curious against what is obviously a very improved USC defense. Listen, you don't need me to tell you about this USC defense. I mean, what they did over the first 2 games of the season, absolutely unbelievable, especially relative to last year, right? Because it's funny, like I was thinking about how to express in, what we do here on the show. Like, how do I express how improved this team is? Because USC's only played 2 games, right? You can't go, well, they were 127th in total defense. Now they're 17th. It's like, whatever. But they shut down LSU. LSU's held to 20 points. They shut out Utah State. But beyond that, if you watch those games, what really stood out to me was the fact, it was the basics, right? It was the fundamentals. It was tackling in space. Like, everybody had the same reaction watching that LSU game. It was like, oh my goodness, this team could tackle all of a sudden. They couldn't even tackle. They couldn't even take the right pursuit angles a year ago. And so now that defense is clearly improved. And obviously the offense is just fine because Lincoln Riley could turn me, could turn producer Matt, could turn you sitting in your office right now, could turn you into a Heisman Trophy candidate. And so when I look at this game, to me, everyone's going to focus on, okay, Alex Orji, can he move the football? I don't think he can. This is the best defense that they will have faced, obviously. He didn't really play against Texas. So that's a heck of an ask. I mean, even if USC is like a top 30, top 40 defense, that's a big ask for a guy that basically hasn't played major college football. And I think USC is better than that. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if by the end of the year they're not as good as we thought, it still doesn't change the fact that this is a very good defense, okay? But here's the other thing that I don't think enough people are talking about is everyone's like, what does Orji do against this new USC defense? I'm not sold that Michigan, which just a year ago was elite defensively, I'm not sure that they can slow down USC. And it's crazy because if you listen to this show, if you're subscribed to the pod, if you're subscribed to the YouTube feed, we talked after the Texas-Michigan game. Texas, in my opinion, when healthy, is the best team in the country. Best team that I've seen, whatever, okay? But at the same time, if you just watch that Texas-Michigan game, it wasn't that Texas was just marching up and down the field. They were, but they took their foot off the gas. But what was embarrassing, if you're a Michigan fan, and I thought this was a little bit underreported, was that I felt like not only had the defense regressed, but a lot of those fundamental issues that we talked about with USC a second ago, those were kind of issues with Michigan in that game. If you just watched Michigan-Texas, if you just watched that game, you saw a Michigan team that was taking bad angles, that was missing tackles, that was letting Quinn Ewers basically convert third downs at will. And that was the light bulb, oh my God, this is so different moment. We knew the quarterback was going to struggle, but I was under the impression, I thought the defense was going to be just fine, and the defense had zero answers for Texas, and I don't think they're going to have any answers on Saturday because I don't think it's just a personnel issue. I know they lost a lot of good players from a year ago. I think the bigger issue is they're poorly coached. This guy, Wink Martindale, the new defensive coordinator, he came from the NFL. My understanding, talking to NFL people, he was basically run out of the NFL because the NFL was like, this guy's no good. His defenses were not, they're kind of like old school, kind of whatever. They weren't getting the job done. Got fired by the New York Giants last year. There was a dust up with Dable, whatever. Bottom line was he wasn't welcome back. And so I'm just not so, I think this defense is not, I don't know if they're not talented, but I don't think they're well coached. I think Lincoln Riley is going to embarrass them. Steve Sarkisian embarrassed them. Remember, Texas was up 24-3, I believe, at halftime. It was either 24-3 or 24. I think it was 24-3 at halftime. And in that game, remember, they got a touchdown called back on the first possession. It easily could have been 31-3, and it easily could have gotten ugly. So I don't know how Michigan scores on this USC defense, which isn't necessarily something I thought I was going to say coming into the year. But more than that, I don't really know how they're going to slow down USC. Again, defense was the backbone. Toughness was the backbone. Fundamentals were the backbone. By the way, saw this stat as well on Michigan. Last year, third in the country in fewest penalties. Had 45 all season. This year, they're 73rd in penalties. They already have 16 through 3 games. So I could go on and on. But I'm worried about the state of this program. I don't really think it's a Sharon Moore issue as much as this defense. And I just think the fundamentals are really lacking. USC wins big. I know I just said something in like the 31-10 range for the Tennessee-Oklahoma game, excuse me. I think we're going to get something very similar in Ann Arbor. And I think USC makes another early season statement.